or as anybody who watches me normally.
Hey,
Yeah.
everybody. Welcome to the Skid stream. Today, we are so blessed. Today, we have Blake Kleiner, the producer, editor, the man behind the scenes that makes Redonkulas happen. Welcome, Blake.
I'm not sure how blessed you are, but I'm happy to be here.
Oh, we are very, very happy to be here. Just everybody tuning in probably knows Blake already, but just by way of a bit of an introduction, I, of course, have been a fan of Redonkulas ever since like 2013, 2014. I've been there since almost the beginning. We got to know each other a little bit. I think it was about 3 years ago when I asked you guys to do some advertising for me. You put together the best 30-second clip I've ever seen for this little project I did. It's funny. We'll talk about that later. But then I got to go know you guys, and Pop had me help out with the admin violence stuff because I have my own story to help out, teaching and talking about that. And then, of course, I became crazy Uncle Skid, stopping in every once in a while. So it has been my absolute pleasure to know you gentlemen. Fantastic. And just leading into my very first question, talking about how you go, I will mention this, is that Blake, fantastic guy with his time, very generous. As I started getting into video editing, would answer my questions, help me with stuff, then getting into live streaming, same thing. So thank you very much, Blake, for all your time and generosity that you spend here.
Anytime.
So putting us into that, everybody would like to know, how did it all begin?
How did it begin? Well, as far as like me meeting the popster,
Absolutely. We need to hear the origin story.
Well, anybody who has seen the 100,000 subscriber extravaganza knows the basics, but it was late 2008. At that point in time, I was still with the horse chick, and at that point, I think it was around Thanksgiving or so, I was working for this company up in Auburn Hills. I can just name it because it no longer exists. It was called Star Shows. And that was my full-time gig for 2 years at that point. And I was filming weddings hand over fist that year. I think I shot 52.
Holy crap.
And then around about October, the checks stopped coming in. We're having money troubles, blah, blah, blah. It all boiled down to one department was siphoning off the resources from every other department because it was so poorly run. And so by Thanksgiving, I was told, don't bother coming into the office. You stay home. But don't worry, we're moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I started looking for work. And I was on everywhere, Craigslist. And that was where I found an ad for a guy who was just looking for somebody. It was very poorly written, of course, because at that point in time, I wasn't around to depop anything that he writes. But he put up this thing looking for a director for what would become Purple Heart's Final Beat.
Right.
And I met up with him over at there's a Caribou Coffee. It's now an Atomic Coffee over in Royal Oak. And I sat down and I talked with the dude. And he told me what he wanted to do. And I was like, well, I said, I think we can do that for, pretty cheap, actually. It's if you're supplying everything, you got the house, you got all that. I mean, we don't have to manufacture props because you've got 2 Purple Hearts. Sure, I'll do it for you for 500 bones. And he was like, practically pulling out the checkbook right then and there. Because I think the cheapest offer that he got prior to me sitting down with him was 10 grand.
Get out.
Yeah. But when I was listening to him, I was like, I believe in what he's doing. So yeah, I mean, I think we can shoot this in 2 days. And that's exactly what it took. It took 2 days. And then after that, it was sound design, which I worked on for, I think, probably 2 to 3 months. And which I think we didn't win for best sound, but we were honorable mentions for it. But the film itself wound up winning a few film festivals, got premiered in like DC, Central Florida, several here in Michigan. We won this little local one called the Mint Movie Project Short Film of the Month, and then Short Film of the Year at the end of the year, and best editing for that one too.
Nice.
And it was all serious humdrum stuff all the time for a while. Did Phantom Holiday, and which was probably the second best one in there. And it was all very what Pop would call the pained mind stuff, the pain mind, because he was still so trapped in that mindset. It was just so fresh off of his divorce.
Yeah.
And then randomly one day he comes up and he's like, "Hey, I think we can do this different. I want to do comedy." I'm like, you want to do comedy?
Yeah.
Guy who sat across from me at Logan's Roadhouse and said he was tired of living at 40. I'm like, all right, you want to do comedy. And I've known him for a few years at that point. We shot the first few episodes in what was my apartment in Southfield. And it wasn't until we moved the studio back to my mom's in the basement, and then that horse chick video happened. And I was like, dude, maybe he's got something here.
Can I show the folks at home what some of that looked like from the very beginning? I've got
Oh yeah, go right
I
ahead.
got one of your very beginning videos on here. So let's see here. Where are we?
You can see my growth.
Here, let's have both of us on here.
Oh
So this
God,
is
yeah, that's the apartment.
he's looking even in shape there,
My
man.
name's Terrence Popp from Redonkulas.com. Doing another lecture in regards to the comparison of a hoe
True.
to an ex-wife. Now, a lot of us out there have ex-wives, and let's face it, we call them hoes, which I think is basically the same. First, let's start with the acronym for hoe.
Yeah, this was a 2-camera shoot.
Orientated entertainer.
Is that what they call strippers sometimes?
When the hookers.
Just to get things straight.
I forgot about that cutaway.
Oh God, you can see, and that's like way at the beginning, right? I went right back, and so here we are with the basics of the. It's funny because I'm in the military too, and I've seen this whiteboard briefing style many times, and it's like, oh my God, this is perfect, and I can see where you started. It wasn't only just the different angles and the different waves coming in, but then inserting the different clips that you would find to start making it happen. It was funny to see the very beginnings of that evolution. So this is an example of the beginning, and you kind of took it from there.
Yeah, it was. You can really see a progression over the entire first season. We were just slowly getting better and better, and I think we finally hit our stride right around like season 3 or 4. Because prior to that, it was Pop standing in front of the board. He wouldn't even give me his notes. He would just write everything down. And I was like, all right, here, we'll set up the cameras and I'll just do it. Like I didn't have him mic'd. I didn't know a whole lot at the time. And it was probably around the time, like I said, season 3 or 4. Suddenly, like, okay, well, there's some longevity to this. I really need to double down and start figuring out ways to make this look and sound better. Mm-hmm. And that was when my buddy Evan decided to construct us the classic bar, which has been one of the centerpieces of the show now for years. And that's when put him behind there, and then just the booze collection just starts growing and growing. Like the first time you see the bar, it's like one beer sitting there with a microphone and a sign, and there's nothing on it, and then you just see the beer, the alcohol collection growing and growing. I would love to do just a just like a two frames from each episode. Just watch the booze collect on there, like stop motion.
Yeah, nice. I remember way back when, and I think maybe it was around your 3rd year, but one of your most popular videos certainly was the rules of a gunfight, and that one, oh my goodness, so
that one kept getting reposted all over the place. A lot of different veteran sites. We Are the Mighty would repost it almost every year, and every time they did, it would get another 10 to 20,000 hits. So
well, here's an example of Blake's editing here.
Yeah. Today, Bad Pop here. Survived a couple of gunfights. Came up with some rules. I'm giving you this briefing so you do not die. Y'all have to remember, I hate you. Rules of a gunfight. Very simple rules to follow. They happen fast.
And of course, if you want to actually see the rules of the gunfight, go see it for sure, because like, I think first of all, the subject matter is awesome, of course, because anybody who's done any kind of tactical training and go, you know what, he's got it there, like, there's absolutely. But more importantly, with respect to our discussion here, the editing's great. Like, I
Oh,
don't
thanks.
think that people really appreciate how important it is to the flow of the narrative that the editing is properly done. So, like, when you consider a video like that, Blake, like, what were you born with it? Did you develop it? How did you come into your stride for knowing when you throw in your B-roll? B-roll for you guys back there is
Yeah.
like extra little stuff that you throw in there. Usually, in your case, the clips from external sources. But how did you figure it out?
Well, with the episodes as they were, especially in the beginning, it was a way to fill the dead space. Because I mean, none of these are scripted. We didn't start actually scripting anything in any even like haphazard detail until probably around year 5. And prior to that, it was just pop off the top of Pop's head. And sometimes that could result in flubs, long pauses, or hey, wait a second, let me check this. And so I started peppering those in there as a way to cover those up. And then over time, you get a whole bunch of different weird ideas in your head. And as sometimes as I'm filming the episode, I'm editing it up here. It's like, oh, he just said this, that would make a good clip. Take out the phone or a notepad, write it down. And then, to just you keep doing it until sooner or later you don't even think about it.
Yeah, yeah. And like, what was like, you have kind of an encyclopedic knowledge of where to find the right clip. Like, is that just because you love movies, like, movies, TV shows, that kind of thing? So you go, hey, you know what? That Friends
Yeah.
episode or something, where that is that where you kind of where that comes from?
Mostly, yeah. And then recently I developed the ultimate cheat sheet. You can actually go find this site yourself. It's called getyarn.io. getyarn.io.
Okay.
And they have, I don't know how many movie clips or television show clips all together, and they're all categorized by quote. So sometimes I'll be watching, one of his lair videos he sends me, and then there's like a long pause or something, and I listen to about the last 10 seconds of what he said. Okay, how would I respond to this if I were responding as myself? Go to that site, type it in. Oh, here's something pretty close to what I was going to say. Boom, boom.
Wow, that is gold. I'm gonna like talk to you after the interview and get that link from you. That's gold, absolute gold.
It helps. That they're all shitty quality, unfortunately, but I've got this Topaz video AI software that can blow anything up to 4K. It doesn't always look the greatest, but like this last live stream that we did, there was this video somebody sent me, and in the frame, it was probably this big, like relative to the size of the video that you're looking at me. And so I processed it through there, and it just looks like globulous stuff, but you can tell that that leg was not meant to bend that way.
So it's kind of like it does like some kind of AI fill in thing, kind of like the Blade Runner thing, focus in, focus in, focus in, fill in the detail. That's cool.
It doesn't always do the greatest job, but it can yield some very surprising results.
As long as it doesn't give them 6 fingers. Not that I know anything about those kind of things, but anyway.
Yeah, we finally found a picture of Michelle Obama pregnant. Yeah, too bad Barack's got 6 fingers in it. What else you got?
Yeah, come on, man. Surely you got a better AI generated.
By the way, his hair is already gray. I'm pretty sure that happened after he was elected president.
There you go. There you go. I would be remiss for the fans out there if I didn't play your best 3 seconds of editing ever. And those guys are out there thinking about it, and they know what I'm talking about. So
I bet they do.
Got her in. Oh.
I mean, every time it had. That's like one of those jokes that you think, well, maybe you keep telling it too much, it gets overused. No,
You just gotta
you can throw that in as much as you like, because that is the funniest goddamn 3 seconds of anything anywhere at all. It's that laugh. It's that laugh. It's just perfect.
I think that episode specifically, 500 Miles of Mr. Right, is where I thought we really had something.
Yeah.
Because he came in, and then that one was something that he threw down on the board, and I actually had jokes. So, and there's a really easy way to find out when the jokes on screen are written by Pop and when they're written by me. And that's when, in the older videos, when he's sitting down in the medium shot.
Ah.
So what we would do, or traditionally was, he would do one take standing up, one take sitting down. Because Pop, when he sits down, he gets kind of comfortable. He gets a little sly about himself. Like, oh yeah, I'm the shit. And his whole delivery changes.
Right.
And depending on the subject matter, sometimes you want that kind of laid back, I'm the shit delivery. And then sometimes you want the really energetic stuff where he's standing up. And so we would usually just do 2 takes of his whole spiel. And then for 500 Miles of Mr. Right, I was like, I got some ideas if you don't mind. He's like, sure. He's like, what are we going to do? I was like, I'll just zoom the camera in a little bit. So I started feeding him lines based on stuff that I had written down. And because it was just all so damn funny, the laughter that was firing back and forth made for a nice little bit of pacing to kind of, stretch out different bits of the episode.
So I think what that starts to highlight then is how your role morphs more from the producer, director, editor in the background to actually a show participant. And we get to see finally that, there's more to Blake than the man behind the computer, because dude, you are funny. And you're not just the puff straight man too. I mean, you guys have a real dynamic going there.
That's kind of where a lot of that on-set laughter comes from that I would cut away to, because he would, he'd be in the middle of his shtick, and then he would pause to take a breath, and then I would just crack a joke, and it would get him laughing, and then he would take that energy and then channel it into the next delivery.
Yeah, no,
it's a pretty fun dynamic we got going on. I mean, we should have some sort of dynamic going. Been working together for 15 years. It's crazy.
Well, that's good lead into the next question. So, you started off with the documentaries, which are very, very important about male suicide and those things. When I've watched them, and they are very important. Moving on into kind of the whiteboard briefs and the comedy hour and stuff. But then you guys started branching out into some different stuff. The live from the lairs, for example, the pop cultures and stuff. What prompted and what took you in the different directions? What made you think of those directions to go to?
Well, Live from the Lair was entirely Pop's idea. I think he kind of saw the political schism that was coming down the road. And he wanted a way to kind of divert YouTube's attention away from all these guys do is bag on chicks. And so, the military stories started coming out. Of course, the now infamous immortal Pringles can story. You crap in one Pringles can, they never let you live it down, he always says. But I mean, it's such a good story. Why not? The best stories you can listen to over and over again. So that was kind of that. And then I want to say we did a podcast out in Jersey about 4 years ago. And while we were driving out there, I brought my GoPro and everything, but I didn't think to set it up while we were on the trip. And I drove both ways. And just the conversations that we had on the road. Because I remember, Pop hates tunnels, which I didn't know about him until I took him on this trip. And every time he went through a tunnel, he's like, God damn it. Freaking hate tunnels. These places are haunted. Hell. And then we come out of the other side of this one, and he sees this open valley. And all, just huge, power line structures just strung across the whole thing. And then out of nowhere, he's like, if you really wanted to ruin somebody's day, take a pickup truck, fill it with a few bits of explosive, just drive it right down there, set it off on that, you'd kill power to this whole valley for a week. What?
What?
I'm just driving, and you're thinking about how to take over the world. And then on the way back, I said, why don't we set up the GoPro and just shoot the shit while we're here? And that was where Ride and Roast came from. It was just our natural conversations in the car. In fact, one whole episode, which we had originally planned to be something else, because I was driving him to the airport to go to a certain event that happened in January 3 years ago.
I recall something about that.
Which he was nowhere near, for the record.
for the
Anybody out
record.
there watching might have
You
an
got a
alphabet community thing going on.
just saying.
Yeah. And that wound up becoming an episode just by itself, and it was literally just us BSing on the way to the airport.
Yeah. Now, my personal favorite, and I remember it's funny because I'd be listening to these kind of things about the same time I was doing a whole lot of flying for RCMP up here, and I'd try to get in a little bit before I go to work as I'm having my my breakfast and all that stuff. And my favorite by far of that, now the Pringles stuff is good, but for me, it's got to be. Let's see if I can bring this up here fast enough here. Goats on steroids.
Oh, yes.
Everyone out to the rail yard, and a fucking train with the box cars roll up. They open the box car, and they just start throwing out these sickly, fucked up goats. And whatever you get. And if your fucking goat dies, you go back to the beginning of Goat Lab, not the beginning of the 18th Delta Corps. But and there was a couple of fucking tricks that these guys would do. Like, number one, they would get this fucked up goat, and what's the best way to keep a goat from fucking dying? You give it fucking steroids.
I'm just like, I could listen to that again and again and again. And, like I say, I've got my own military stories, and I mean,
Yep.
you cannot make this shit up. It really does happen. And so a couple of things that I take out of that video is, first of all, like, when I tell stories, it's nice to have an audience. My kids they don't need to hear them anymore, and people don't need. But it's just like, you laugh at your own stories, because when you have really good stories, you're your best personal audience. So Pop does the same thing. I love the way he can sit there in a room by himself and really have a good chuckle about the whole thing. But the second thing is, I mean, you were editing all this stuff. Would he just send you the raw footage from this, and you just kind of clip it?
Yeah, at that point in time, I think that one was probably shot after he moved back to Michigan. Very briefly, he was living in the basement of his buddy Darren's house. Everybody knows Darren was until recently, a couple of years ago, was the downstairs resident at the new lair before he passed away. And but he was in Utica, New York when he started doing these things, and he would just Google Drive them to me, like, "Hey, I got a new one. You can throw it together." Sure, no problem. So just Google Drive has been one of our best friends over the course of this, especially when he was out of town, because he used to drive back here. It's a 9-hour drive each way.
I remember,
and he would do it twice a month for two reasons. One, primarily, was to see his children, and then him and I would usually shoot between 2 and 3 pop cultures while he was here.
Yeah,
and then he would be gone for another 2 weeks.
Now, with the live from the lair stuff, I assume the editing load was less, though, because you're just kind of doing cuts, right? As opposed
those
to
were essentially just vlogs. Yeah.
Yeah. Still, I mean, just for the folks at home, so you have an idea of effort level, like, how much time / effort would you put into your typical, so this one was 17 minutes, Goats on Steroids. Like, how much time would you put into producing something like that? Starting with the live from the lair, and then contrast that with how much it would take to do like a pop culture, something that needs more work.
One of the basic layers, start to finish, is usually about a 2-hour ordeal. And then, of course, posting to the various sites that we're on, making a post on our website. So 2 to 3 hours for that. Pop cultures and ride and roasts are a whole different animal. And it's funny because I started off with the ride and roast as kind of being an extension of Live from the Lair, but then the reception to them was so overwhelmingly positive that I started putting a little bit more effort into them. So now you're talking, for each one of those, depending on the level of production and how much detail we have to go into in terms of sourcing and information, it can be anywhere from 20 to 40 hours for one episode.
Yeah, I totally believe you. Like I said, you were very helpful to me at the beginning as I started doing my own video editing, and like, I can put together a workout video, of me doing something out in the woods somewhere that's like 20 minutes long. That takes me like 6-7 hours easily, if not a little bit more, putting all the stuff together. So yeah, it is extremely time and effort intensive, I guess is the way to put it, because there's no shortcuts to it. You can see what you want to do, but you can have the best software in the world, but the best software in the world also has to be very, very flexible and capable, which means you have to tell it exactly what to do. So it's not like, I know I was talking with Jeff there, Jeffrey Paul, about how he does his editing, and he's like,
He's in the chat. I see him.
I just set up my iPhone and go, right? And that's great for his purpose. And he just has to click a button, do it, because it has all its little bells and whistles, but it has those bells and whistles. And if you actually want to do what you want to do specifically, that takes work.
Oh, yeah. I think it was Stanley Kubrick who said that if he got 10% of his vision on the screen on any given day, it was a good day.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm in the middle of this undertaking. I'm literally editing together the entire, I call it the Hollow Green trilogy, the new Halloween movies by David Gordon Green, because a buddy of mine hated the last one so much. It was like, hey, just for you, I'll throw together like a whole trilogy edit. I'll do one long movie and I'll cut out all the crap we don't like. It's like, all right. It's been an ordeal and a half. I mean, I'm learning stuff that I didn't previously know, because I wanted this to look and sound as good as it can. So I'm figuring out how to make 5.1 remixes out of MP3s. I'm downloading sound effects so that I can bridge scenes together that were never meant to go together. And then there are some times when that's downright impossible, even though it's up here, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, for sure. Just for any of the folks at home who happen to be video editors or burgeoning video editors, what software do you use?
Adobe Premiere.
Yeah.
I was Final Butt, as I call it, for about 10 years. That's what I started off editing on. I started on it in 2004 and worked on it until 2015, 2016. And I think they stopped updating it in 2010. So I was already working with software that was 6 years beyond obsolete. And a buddy of mine's like, just try Premiere. You can actually change the keyboard shortcuts to be what you're used to in Final Cut. I was like, okay. So the time came when I was going to have nothing but downtime because I was getting snipped after we had our son. So I was like, all right, well, I got five days on my ass, and I'm not going to play Nintendo the entire time. Screw it. I'll edit the next wedding that I'm going to do in Premiere, and I'll just figure it out as I go. And it was actually, the learning curve wasn't nearly as bad as you would think.
Interesting. Yeah, I just use this cheap version of VideoPad, which is a great segue into, if I ever, actually made some money on this channel, I might actually buy some proper software to use. I might actually buy some software to use for it. You can see some links below. If anybody's watching, you can see it in the low bar. Caves of Janxrathra is my game. Genuine Janxrathra merchants we're going to talk about in a second. And of course, my book, Really and Raven, all down there. It would be remiss if halfway through the stream we didn't at least do some advertising, and I'll get rid of that because, God almighty, that's enough of that. However,
I was always the one who was like, how do you pronounce that?
Yeah,
Every time I saw it pop up, I had to syllabicate it in order to pronounce it correctly.
Well, I if you don't mind, I will show the folks what the amazing thing that you put together. Like, I think you guys charged me $30 for this thing, and I mean, you produced something that was worth 10 times that much. Hold on a second here.
I mean, we're not in this to make money on this end, so I mean, I'm not gonna bend anybody over the barrel for it.
But this is impressive. So I'll give a little bit of this here.
Oh, I didn't see you there. I thought you were done staring at my ugly mug, so I brought you this one. I'm not even going to try to say the company name that makes this, because y'all know I'm as less lexic as hell. But you can check the links in the description and buy one for yourself. Patriarchy, building civilization for 5,000 years and counting. Winning. If you want to drink deeply from the cup of expendability, well, this is a good start. Did I say expendability? I meant to say truth. All right.
I just
remember that.
Like I say, at the time, I think we were deep in the middle of COVID, and I was bored, and I was just looking around saying, you know what? how do people do merch? Like, how does this go around? And I started messing around with stuff, and honestly, it was no intention of actually making any money. It was all the intention of just learning how that space works. And I'm like, okay, well, no one's ever going to see this, so I should advertise somewhere. And I don't intend to sell a whole bunch, so I don't want to spend a whole bunch on advertising. So it's crazy. So I wonder if Pop and Blake would do something. And you were very, like I say, not only generous in terms of, you know, being very reasonable of what you charge, but man, did you ever make a great commercial there? Like, that is outstanding.
You can really tell, and you can tell that this was pre-herbal tea Pop. Just listening to his delivery and that, like, he was clearly, that was something that we shot after we were done with an episode, and he was at least 1.5 sheets to the wind. It's written all over his mug.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Oh, there you go. For the folks at home that are wondering about that crazy name, Janxrathra, that Pop has a hard time saying. Where does it come from? Well, first of all, it's on the back of the mug there. That is from like Dungeons and Dragons when I was 16 years old. I made a map of where we were playing, all that, and there was this one place called the Caves of Janxrathra, and it has formed the basis of all kinds of stuff that I've done later on when I wrote that game. So for those aficionados out there who happen to like the old school Dungeons and Dragons video games that you know, us Gen Xers like Bard's Tale, Oubliette was one, Wizardry, that kind of stuff. You take your guys down to the dungeon. I rewrote Oubliette is what I did, and put it on like a Windows platform, made it better. In fact, it's not my story, but I contacted the guy who wrote Oubliette because it was clear copyright infringement, and he was cool with it. So that's where that goddamn name comes from. We can talk about that later. Anyway, all that to say though is that it showcases your ability here. I don't know how long you spent making that commercial, but Jesus.
I think I wrote it up because, I mean, by that time, we were in this studio here. Like, this is, you know, you guys can see the paneling. It's where we had our studio for a while. And it wasn't until we started doing live streaming that it became an issue, because we'd be up until sometimes 11 o'clock at night or longer, and we're right underneath the bedrooms. So, you know, you put on one video of somebody's leg going the wrong way, and Pop wakes up the neighborhood. So we had to move everything over to the lair. And I've gotten so used to writing for Pop that I think writing the commercial probably took me 5 minutes.
Wow. And like I say, like the edit cuts, it's perfect. Like it's just, it's a very high quality product is what I'm saying, that you were, like I say, very generous for. So I appreciate it.
It would have been a little bit better if it didn't just say buy a mug on the board. We could have done a little bit better with that.
Sometimes simple is better.
In hindsight, I would have been, well, you know, I could probably Photoshop it, you know, skew the perspective so it looks like it matches, put his logo up there. I was probably just being lazy that day.
I think it's better that way. It's more authentic. It's perfect.
Oh yeah, when Pop is advertising your stuff, you have to expect some corners to be cut somewhere.
There you go. There you go.
I just buy a mug. You misspelled mug. It's fine.
You know, and just as a sidebar, one of the other guys who advertised you with you was Brant von Gobel.
Yes.
From his book, The Rules. And because of seeing your ad for that, I got his book, read his book, and that's how I met Brant. And in fact, he was my first live stream, actually. Interviewed him just before Christmas. What an interesting fellow.
Oh, that dude's 30 pounds of brain in a 20-pound bag.
And he just does whatever he wants. He's in Hungary right now, and just wow, no fear, just the way he goes. Really, really good. I wanted to go back to the evolution of things. One of the things that happened, I remember it happening around 2014, 2015. Somewhere in there is where YouTube decided that they were going to stop monetizing people who were doing content they didn't like. And then it just got worse and worse and worse. And the censorship Nazis started coming in, and this, that, and the other thing. So I thought I'd offer a question to you. How did the changing landscape of the censorship and the monetization change your methodology, mostly like going into the alternative media?
That was the first step. I think BitChute was our first off YouTube channel, and I want to say that one's kind of stagnated. unfortunately. I think part of it is BitChute decided to they decided, and I think it was early 2020, they got everybody else's money where their mouth was.
Hmm.
And they said, oh, we've reached our financing goal, which means you guys are going to get HD, you're going to get live streaming. And they listed all this stuff that was going to be happening in the very near future. And then none of it came. So a lot of people started jumping off the platform. And the fact that the comments on BitChute are another issue altogether. But Pop wanted to test the water with a lot of these different sites, and now the ones that we live stream to are the ones who have, kind of withstood the test. So Odyssey, of course, Rumble, MGTOW.tv. Most of the rest of them have just kind of stagnated. Brighteon, because it's been completely blacklisted on every search engine, is almost impossible for anybody to find. MGTOW.tv, for some reason, still keeps thriving despite that exact same blacklisting. So, well, hopefully what happened last week won't happen again. Somebody decided that they were going to put some kitty corn on the site and then report it for kitty corn.
Like put it in a comment or something, so they snuck it in. Is that
either as an actual video or something else? Yeah.
Oh, sorry, not with your stream, but just
not with our stream, but with the site itself. Got the whole thing taken down for about 24 to 48 hours.
You know that's a bad actor somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that. Nobody in his right mind would actually do that for real. So yeah,
yep.
That's what. So what would be your preferred secondary media? So like, what do you think is going to stand the test of time? Because I hear what you're saying about BitChute. Like I started watching different people on different places. And BitChute initially, like you say, it came out of the gate all right, but then first of all, nothing would load properly, and this, that, and the other. Just in terms of like a watching experience, I find Rumble and Odyssey are the winners right now. But what is it like in terms of production?
Oh, I mean, yeah, those two, absolutely. Odyssey and Rumble are definitely going to withstand the test of time. Odyssey seems to be innovating all the time. At the very least, I mean, they're not changing how their site looks; they're changing how well it works, and that's what you want.
Yeah.
One of the things that I can't stand about so many websites is that they feel like they have to change how it looks, and then in the process, they lose sight of how it works.
Yeah.
And if everybody's happy with how it works, leave it alone. Just streamline things.
They must have taken lessons from the military, because that's usually how the military does something. Somebody wants to get promoted, so they'll change, how you format the memo. Yeah. Although that doesn't make any difference to how things actually work, except, making a whole bunch of stuff less efficient over the transition time.
Yeah, that's just the modern, that's just modernity in general. It's not broke. We still got to fix it.
Yeah, for sure.
Just look at the troons.
What, obviously when that change happened, it must have affected your monetization. And I know that, you it's very, very clear from Pop's content and the way that you do it, you guys aren't in it for the money. You're in there to help guys out and get the message out. What you're up to, like 530 some guys saved now.
No, 541.
541, excuse me. So that's awesome. However, it is good to have some income come in there to pay for equipment, upkeep, things like that. How did you compensate for the fact that YouTube stopped its monetization? What I mean is, were you able to transfer that over to the secondary media, to the alternative media? Did it come through for you?
It's the supporters who came through for us. Because I've been doing the math, because you get analytics on YouTube every day. And you go through and you take a look at where you're allegedly monetized, but I know how much people donate to every stream, and I can extrapolate that in my head. And despite the fact that they're running ads on most of our stuff, we're not getting hardly anything, if anything at all. The archive channel, 90% of the videos on there, even though they're from streams that have been demonetized on the main channel, are allegedly monetized on the archive channel. So there's no consistency. and there's no money still coming into the archive channel. So that's where these guys have come in, man. The supporters have been wonderful. Even if they're not monthly supporters, they've been coming through in the chats, and that's why we came up with we're not worthy, because without them, we may not be here, because even though we're not in it for the money, it does cost money to make all this happen.
Absolutely. Well, and of course, you do your wedding stuff, you do other sources of income, so this isn't your main source of income, but like you say, it is your time. And
lots of time.
And it's not like you're asking for compensation for your time, but it's opportunity cost. Well, you're doing this, you're not doing something else that could be supporting your family, so it's important.
Yeah, I've been I turn down gigs a lot. Unfortunately, sometimes even for friends of mine who would love me to come and work on films or what have you. I've managed to get a couple of cinematographer gigs in the last few years, but not very many, because I do devote a lot of time.
Yeah.
Not just to my own business, of course, but to the show. And then I've got a family to look after. My boy's down here gaming right now. There somewhere.
There you go.
He's being nice and quiet. I told him I was going to be here. So.
There you go. Well, what makes me curious, and some of the other folks, as we've talked about the mechanics of it, what would be because you've been at it now 11 years that you've been doing
this year will be 11 years.
So thinking back, what would be one of the funniest stories you could tell of one of your adventures with Pop, either in making video, around it, other stuff, external, whatever? Do you have a funny story of you and Pop from somewhere?
Oh, man. There's a lot of those. Honestly, I think one of the best days of my life was when I realized that man just has the weakest stomach for things that don't bother me at all. And it's one of my favorite ways to torture him. So like, if he ever gives me crap, like the other night, I changed into a merchant, merch shirt, and he comes up. He's always giving me shit. He's like, "You got side boob." I was like, "Well, I didn't want you to be the only one." I gotta give him shit back. And but yeah, I think it was when we started watching the viral videos doing the effed up but funny segments during the streams that I realized that he just does not have the stomach for a lot of stuff. And so that's why I came up with that whole idea of make Pop puke. And that was one of the best streams we ever did. Because it was a true test of his intestinal fortitude. He barely made it out alive.
Oh man. I tell you, one thing you guys did that it didn't almost make me hurl, but certainly is when he was doing that thing with the chocolate milk and it sprayed on his face.
When it actually flew up into his eye, I thought about lost it.
He got it in his eye. Oh my God.
And the whole thing of filming 500 Miles of Mr. Right, because there was so much laughter happening. I want to say, I think that episode is not even 10 minutes long. There's over an hour of footage of that episode, and it's just us cracking each other up.
You should do like a gag reel for that. Guys would love
I'm thinking
that.
about going back into it. I've got a graveyard of external hard drives. They're all in a dresser drawer in my furnace room. I am on Redonkulas drive number 7 after this many years. And that's got to be over 30 terabytes of video.
Jesus, eh?
There's a lot.
Nice. Oh, I'd love to see it. I'm sure the fans would too. Now, I recall that at one point, I think it was when you were shooting in Pop's house, but objects would move mysteriously. There was a ghost in the house.
That was my house, actually.
Or
my mom's house.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
It was one of the first times that we did. At the time, we were just calling it Question Couch, because we used to get all these questions, and he couldn't answer all of them himself, so he wanted to have me in there. And we had this red futon, and right next to it is this little piece of closet space. And there was this Night of the Living Dead movie poster. And in the middle of us answering questions, and this poster had been sitting there in that position for I don't know how many, like months, years, whatever, all of a sudden it just decided to. And I went in and read the comments after the first couple of days, and everybody was talking about the poster. No one cared about anything we had to say. They were like, haunted, haunted. I realized it while I was editing. I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. I didn't realize that they were just going to take that ball and run with it. But then again, I'm going on, 3 years of being the captain of the gay cruise for one news source with a banner at the top of the page. So you can never, ever underestimate these gentlemen.
Yeah, you can be Gandhi, but if you have that one goat, you're a goat have at it. So that's all there is to that.
You ain't kidding.
Was there any follow-up to any of that? It was just the poster?
It was just the poster as far as I know, yeah. And then, of course, recently has been Pop versus Robo Squirrel. I think he's on Robo Squirrel number 3 that's gotten into his house.
Oh, man. I hate squirrels.
I don't know how many holes that house has in its foundation, but they love to get in.
They are a plague. I call them tree rats.
Yeah. My personal favorite was when he told me about the squirrel and then went upstairs to make his herbal tea. I'm at the computer prepping the stream, and all of a sudden I just hear this little tink tink sound, and I look over, and sitting on the kitchen counter is the squirrel.
Man.
And I just made eye contact with him. I was like, yo, Pop. He's like, what? He's in the kitchen. What? He's in the kitchen. He's like, he comes running downstairs with the herbal tea, and he grabs the airsoft gun. He's like, oh, it's on. And he starts chasing after the thing. It runs into the bathroom, finds a hole in the wall just under the sink, and darts back down to the basement, disappears.
I was about to say, it's like, allegedly, I have a 22 air rifle. So it fires at 495 feet per second, which in Canada means that it's not a firearm. And with a 22 caliber pellet, allegedly it works really well on squirrels.
Allegedly, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, these are people, you don't want to piss off your Canadian neighbors who, animal lives matter and all that.
Oh, don't get me started. Okay, we'll go into political stuff on another stream.
Best we can do is kill you, Skid.
God almighty. As we kind of get towards the end here, I was curious, and we've talked a little bit too. You have, of course, many interests outside of Redonkulas. Not just your wedding shooting, but other hobby type stuff. And I just wanted to show these folks real quick some of your drone videography here.
Oh, sure, yeah, go ahead.
Let me bring this up here for a second. Let me see.
Jay Quinn, Black Animals Matter. I like that. Bam.
Here we are. And let's just do some of this. This is your outros to the stream.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, great using Technoaxe music for that. I have that. And again, you put me that way.
Technoaxe does amazing music. He does, I think, 2 or 3 unique pieces of music every week.
Now, what I want to point out to people here, just for a second here, I'll keep the shot up, is that, so I fly a drone too, and I'm getting into using. First of all, what kind of you're using here?
I have the Mavic Air 2. I actually got it right over here.
Outstanding. I have the one that's below that. I've got the Digi Mini Pro 3. So
this guy here, my Mavic Air 1 took a tumble last January. I was at a wedding, and it was a day for stuff breaking. I had a light clamped to a door in the hotel room where we were filming the bride getting ready.
Yeah.
And it was an adjoining suite, so I had it clamped to the adjoining suite door. It had been left propped open, and it was pressed against the wall by a rack. Not to be confused with a rack, And so it was up there because it was just dark in there, so I needed to have fill light. And then one of the flower girls decided after the rack got moved and I was focusing on something else, she swung the door shut, and then down my $300 light goes to the floor. So I have one light that's like this. That's the good light, the one that fell. And I had to make do with my one that's about the size of my phone that has about a quarter of the throw. So that's not my main light, thankfully. And I was used to working somewhat without it, but it made the rest of the night interesting. And then I was at the reception flying over. I was at the studio center over in Farmington. They make a lot of movies and stuff there. I'm scaling up around this tree, shooting the venue through it. All of a sudden, my obstacle detection takes a dump. It gets tangled in the branches. I look up just as it completely seizes and falls 50 feet to the pavement, kaplooey. It shatters. I'm picking up parts. There's wires exposed. It's all covered in mud. Well, it was nice while it lasted.
Yeah, and you realize that reality isn't a computer game, and you can't just press undo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thankfully, the dude who was selling this, he was buying a new one just because he wanted a new one. And I got this one, which is the upgraded version of my old one for less than half of the price that I paid for the old one.
Sweet.
So great deal. Would not
That's
recommend crashing a drone to get it, but
yeah. That's the
wouldn't hurt
one
it
that I
now.
would go to, or whatever newest one they've got, if I get into it some more. I wanted to kind of go in entry level, so not to bore you guys with too much technical stuff, but Mini Pro 3 is the one below that. And the nice thing about the Mini Pro 3 is it's under the weight. I think it's 349 grams so I can do it without a license. I don't need anything with it whatsoever, take it wherever. So very, very handy. However, doesn't have the same kind of stability that yours has because of the mass against turbulence, winds, and things like that, and can't quite go as high, but still a very capable drone. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about was that, like, you're doing all your own piloting with this as you're doing this, right? And what guys need to understand if you're going to get into drones or you're looking at drone photography is it's one thing to be able to fly, and you don't really fly them like an airplane. You just move them through space, but whatever. But you not only have to move it through space, you have to compose a video. So you're shooting video and flying, and those are two different things that you need to put together. So what Blake did here, I could back it up. I'll just describe it. As you went over, you had a nice slow flight to get that slow motion, and you can see the other motion of the cars going. There's a very smart, it's like a $6 million man thing you got going there. But then you're panning down at the same time with your field of view. Now that takes skill. You're actually controlling numerous axes, not just of the flight, but of the shooting, and that's very cool and hard to do.
Yeah, doing the first time I achieved an actual parallax shot with the drone, I was very pleased because I wanted to. It was at this place that it's kind of tucked away in Detroit. It's a Detroit Golf Club, and it's just got a very majestic archway, where people come in and park and unload and stuff like that. So I managed to get the shot where it was coming down, and then as it did, I was tilting the camera up, so it has this really cool parallax effect of the building kind of booming up into the shot as the drone descends.
Yeah.
So,
It is
all
not
right, I got this.
It's not easy. Your joysticks are like this big, and you got to be like you got to be Mr. Totally very, very subtle motion. And it is not, trust me, I've been playing around with these kind of things, and it's like these drones will come with modes, well, like that, like the Apple phone modes. They'll do all kinds of stuff, which can give you some interesting shots. But if you really want to get an artistic shot, you got to fly it yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can plan out those shots. I mean, I know that they do keyframes with GPS coordinates and stuff. I haven't played around with that yet, just because I've never been in a position where I could have the time allowed to plan out such an intricate shot.
Yeah.
So it's all about, okay, get what I can in the moment, make it look as good as I can.
Yeah. Well, and then, not to go, but it's like you need the right lighting conditions. So, direct sunlight, you're going to need some kind of neutral density lens to cut that down, or wait for a cloudy day so you have less direct lighting. So there's a lot to it for what's time of day, where's your shadows going to be, what's your composition going to look like. There's a lot to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I typically fly drone during dinner at weddings just because it's it's much easier to get good drone video during golden hour than it is, and especially during the summer, and that's my busiest season. I'm pretty much out every weekend from May through Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I think that's something else the guys out there need to appreciate in all the work that you put into helping Pop out, and with the editing, the production, stuff like that. You're out all weekend too, doing all these things, busting your hump, getting these wedding shots done. And it's not that easy shooting a wedding, and then you're including the drone stuff as well. So that's a huge production. Is that, just for the guys at home, is that your primary income source then, is doing the weddings?
Doing the weddings and other events too. Yeah. I just finished knocking out a series of product videos for a motor company up in Oxford.
Good.
There was 14 of them, I want to say. Shot them all in a day. They originally had that they sent me all these scripts over, and I'm looking at everything. I was like, you want to do 14 engines? And then I threw down the one idea that saved all of us a ton of time and money, which was, can you find an electronic turntable for these engines, one that can support their weight? So all you have to do is hit a button and this thing will just spin nice and slow, and we can do one lighting setup. We don't have to constantly move things around. So what would have been an all-day shoot turned into a 3-hour shoot.
Nice.
Saved them a ton of money.
Nice.
And I lit that thing like a boss.
Nice.
those engines look good enough to eat. They
Nice.
love it.
Are you getting more freelance work like that?
Yeah, I'm out there campaigning for it all the time. It's a very saturated market. But
for anybody watching, Blake does amazing work.
Oh, thank you, sir.
There you go. We're kind of getting to the end of it here, Blake. Is there anything that I haven't covered that maybe you think the guys out there would like to know about the stuff that you've been doing with Pop? Because I mean, obviously the people turn in are fans of Pop, and this is their behind the scenes look. Anything that you can think of that maybe we haven't talked about?
No, I mean the dudes who have stuck around in the last 4 years, especially, I think they kind of know the deal a little bit more. I talked about this not too long ago. I used to get a catastrophic amount of shit, like just people throwing shade at me in the comments like you wouldn't believe. And it was only because I actually had the nerve to step in front of the camera. And there was one guy especially, I don't even remember his name, and he just said that anybody could do what I do because you just press record. And I was like, wow. Like, you want to come and do my job? Please do. Because Pop is he's a great dude, great comedic talent, but directing him, it took a long time. I mean, there's a reason why the show got consistently better. It's because I got better at learning how to, steer things, and also how to, to work with a guy who's got, he's two TBIs and what have you. His short-term memory is not as good as his long-term memory. So when he commits things to memory, he'll remember them forever.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's short-term memory, like, we need to make sure that we mention this. Sometimes that'll be 5 or 6 takes. And it's just a matter of, hey, and we have that dynamic. It's not, maybe in the beginning it was about pressing record and then trying to figure out how it was all going to go together, but it became much more of a collaboration down the line. And I think that that's kind of what got everybody on board. Because by the time I think 2019 hit, that was when we really hit our stride. That was when we got introduced to Amy Horton. And there was just this string of episodes all back to back, and we were blowing up. We were logging thousands of new subscribers every week. And then all of a sudden, right after we hit 100,000, I want to say that happened in May of 2019. By July, you actually saw the social blade just go up, 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 and then just dropped off a cliff.
Oh, because they were censoring you, or
yeah, I think they were like, oh, okay, well,
soft censoring you, I guess.
Yeah, well, let's send them their stuff, but let's find out what we got here. And then they didn't like it.
So you got on their radar. That's what happened.
Yeah, there's when you tell the truth and achieve any modicum of popularity on YouTube, they will make you pay for it.
Yeah, it's we definitely live in interesting times, and that'll be a subject for another streom a little bit later.
Oh yeah,
we could go down that road for a while. Probably have to do that one on Rumble, but we'll go from there. Well, I think that I've taken an hour of your time almost tonight, Blake. So, pursuant to what we were just talking about, you're a very busy guy with lots of stuff going on, and and I very much appreciate you sharing some time with me tonight and with the fans out there who would love to hear about what's going on behind the scenes in Pop's world there at Redonkulas. So, very much appreciate you coming by, sir.
I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate all the guys in the chat too, because, like I said, after getting, I spent most of the time working on this show, getting a lot of heat from dudes in the comments, and then just in the last few years, it's nice that instead of it being actual vitriol, they're just busting my balls. I could live with that. That's no problem.
You know,
You guys are more than welcome to do it. I don't want you to change.
it reminds me of, well, I bring this out every once in a while. Some David Goggins said, crazy Navy SEAL ultra marathon runner, and he goes, you know, when it comes to the haters, the people who hate on you, most of them haven't even tried what you failed at.
Oh yeah.
Right. And it's like, shut up. You have no idea what you're talking about. And it's like, I cannot understand the mentality where you got to sling hate. It's like, how about you just go out and improve your own life for a little while and then come back with an interesting story to talk about? But
well, that's just too hard.
Again, subject for another stream. Well, I appreciate you. I will I'll say it again for the folks, not only for the work you do on Redonkulas and frankly saving lives along with Pop, but also for being such a generous dude, helping out guys in this space, you know, with me with video editing, doing streaming and stuff of this to help me out and get me going. So again, kudos to you, good sir.
That's no problem. And like I said, I'm happy to do it. I'm not used to having free time, and I've actually had some lately, so it's kind of bizarre. I'm not used to having, because my last wedding that I filmed was Groundhog Day, and I don't have one until the end of March. So like Pop and I have been talking like, hey, you know, why don't we load up on a bunch of stuff? You know, let's just film a bunch of episodes. They don't all have to come out right away. And then I'll have some material to bleed off of once things really do go off the chain. Because once April gets here, and it gets tough.
There you go. Well, one of these days I'm bringing down the van to see you guys. So I'll be sitting there with you at some point.
Hell yeah.
At any rate, I think I'll end the stream somewhere around here if you want to stick around for a second inside, and we'll chat for a bit, and then we'll go from there. So to the audience members out there, thanks for sticking along. Again, as Blake, I echo what Blake said. Thanks for everybody in the chat. I could not possibly put up everything that's come by. There's lots of guys out there. So appreciate your support and appreciate you coming by. So we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.